In 2011, Arnold Schwarzenegger left office as the governor of California and prepared his return to the big screen. After a few fleeting, decreasingly interesting cameos in the Expendables franchise, he came back in 2013 with his first starring role in a decade. Would audiences welcome him back with open arms, or had his time away, which included a very public scandal involving his housekeeper and a secret child, tarnish his reputation for good? Let's find out as Arnold fights for his film career in The Last Stand. Hello friends, and welcome back to Every Arnold Movie Ever, episode 32. We have officially entered late stage Arnold, post-governor, post-housekeeper scandal, post-non-stop banger after banger blockbuster hit Arnold. Now, he's Arnold lost at sea, which creates one of the more interesting, if not altogether successful, stretches of his film career. You know, he's always been someone searching for the next massive, insurmountable obstacle to overcome. First it was bodybuilding, then the box office, then bureaucracy. And now that he basically accomplished every goal he set in his life, what was next? What dreams were left for Arnold to achieve? Returning to movies seemed like the obvious move, but in the intervening years since Terminator 3, his reputation had taken hits. He left office with a near record low approval rating of 23% and a $28 billion deficit for California. Yes, there was also that whole "I had a secret kid with my housekeeper" scandal that erupted just as he left office. He and Maria Shriver divorced, and even though everyone had heard the stories of Arnold behaving badly during his campaign for governor, here was concrete, visual, carbon-based evidence of his infidelity. All of the projects he had lined up quickly evaporated. I announced that I was suspending my career to work on personal matters. We postponed The Governator, an animated cartoon and comic book series I'd been collaborating on with Stan Lee.
It has been an honor to have served you for these past 8 years, but now I must say goodbye.
Another project that got derailed was Cry Macho, a movie I'd looked forward to making the entire time I was governor. He had to start from scratch, which may explain why his first starring role in over a decade was from a first-time writer and an American debut from a South Korean director. In 2009, Lionsgate bought a spec script from Andrew Nauer titled The Last Stand. Nauer was inspired by an urban legend about a drug dealer who drove a Lamborghini to make his drops. He would turn the lights off and he would wear night vision goggles. Development on this thing took 23 months and included an offer to Liam Neeson, who ultimately passed. And once Arnold was attached, the script went through a rewrite to tailor it to him. He was attracted to it because it shared humorous elements like True Lies, which is something he also said for Fubar.
So when David Ellison came to me with that idea to do a action comedy like True Lies, I was very, very excited about that.
The Last Stand is a small, straightforward story positioned as a modern-day Western, but every Arnold movie ever viewers know it's not Arnold's first Western. South Korean director Kim Ji-woon was brought on as director, and this was his American debut based on the strength of I Saw the Devil, and especially The Good, the Bad, and the Weird, a quirky spaghetti Western. It's visually punchy and energetic and a bit silly, and it seems like that's what they wanted to bring to The Last Stand. So, does The Last Stand stand up as a triumphant return to the screen for Arnold? Let's find out. The Last Stand opens on a cop with a donut just outside Las Vegas. I see that we're going with the most obvious cliches here. And a car passes him so fast that the cop thinks it's a jet.
Contact the FAA. Tell them some smartass is flying a jet plane around out here with no lights on.
Next, we meet Ray, the sheriff of sleepy Arizona-Mexico border town Somerton. Ray has absurdly spiky hair, the same bad hair from Expendables 2, which makes me wonder if he was shooting this and then he went over to do Expendables 2 and they were like, Arnold, do you want to do anything with your hair? And he's like, no, this is fine. Anyway, Ray just wants to enjoy his weekend off. If not, for a visit from a pesky nihilist.
Billy doesn't care about anything. He's a nihilist.
Oh, that must be exhausting.
Right off the bat, Ray is suspicious.
I'm guessing that's your rig out front. What are you guys hauling today?
Auto parts. Yeah.
We also learn that essentially the entire town is leaving to watch the high school football team play an away game.
Did I hear you ain't coming to the game?
Including this guy who parks his car illegally.
What about your car? It's parked in a fire zone.
If there's a fire, go ahead and move it.
Ray doesn't appreciate the disrespect, but saves his insult until the guy is out of earshot.
Schmuck.
And isn't it awfully convenient that nearly everyone is leaving town to support the high school football team. That means like even the people who don't have kids are just like, yeah, let's go to the high school football game. We live in fucking Shitsville. There's nothing else to do. Speaking of high school football, we meet the rest of the police department, which includes QB1 Matt Saracen from Friday Night Lights as one of the deputies named
Jerry.
Jerry proves the schmuck's point that nothing ever happens in Somerton because he and Louis Guzman are out at Johnny Knoxville's house shooting big guns because they're bored. Knoxville plays Louis Dinkum, an eccentric goofball who, if you couldn't tell he was a goofball, his name is Louis Dinkum. Dinkum? Louis? Lou Dinkum? He claims to run a museum.
You got a museum here?
And the tax returns to prove it.
But it's really just an excuse for him to collect a giant arsenal of weapons.
1939 Vickers gun. My little crazy bitch.
And right off the bat, we are introduced to one of the movie's biggest problems. In this scene alone, we have not one, not two, but three characters who provide comic relief. And if that wasn't zany enough, we even get wacky sound effects.
Oh.
Turns out Ray's suspicions of the truck drivers is correct. They try to set up camp at a nearby farm, but meet resistance in the form of a surprise cameo by Harry Dean Stanton.
You clear out now, and I won't fill your ass full of buckshot.
I did not see that coming. Even more surprising is the way he exits the movie.
You don't want to take the silver?
Better take the lead.
It's pretty hilarious and effective that the best actor in the movie gets unceremoniously blasted across the screen. Next, we're given the movie's emotional center and a little background on Ray. He's visited by Deputy Jerry, who wants to move to LA for a more exciting life, but not before we're reminded that he's kind of silly and not to be taken too seriously.
Hey, Ray.
We also learn that Ray was working in narcotics in LA, so they can establish to the audience that he's capable of handling what's coming.
Like when you work narcotics in LA, I just don't understand how you ever gave it up to come to this place.
We then meet FBI agent Bannister, played by Forrest Whitaker. Yes, this cast is secretly stacked. He's transporting Gabriel Cortez, a dangerous cartel boss, and has there ever been an uneventful prisoner transport in a movie? This one is decent, making use of a giant magnet and a bunch of decoys, and they try to set up Cortez here as a psycho by having him kill an agent.
Baby on the way, right?
Put the gun down.
And on top of that, Cortez was also a professional race car driver, and he drives this Corvette ZR1.
This one is a specially modified show car. Normally something around, 700 horsepower, but this is upwards of 1,000. It's a monster on wheels.
He's also taken an agent as a hostage. So they're really stacking the deck and try and make him a threat, but I don't know, man, he's just kind of boring. Back in Somerton, they check out Harry Dean Stanton's farm because he missed his first milk delivery ever. Deputy Sarah and Doofus Jerry find his body, which leads to Ray doing some detecting while wearing glasses. Ray quickly makes the connection to the truckers.
Pistol round didn't do this. He was killed outside. His body was moved inside after the fact.
Ray quickly makes the connection to the truckers, but at least it's coherent, unlike the leaps of logic his detective makes in End of Days.
Wait, we don't have a name.
Well, maybe we do. Maybe it's not Christ in New York. Maybe it's Chris in New York. Christine in New York. Christine York.
We then learn that Cortez, he's in cahoots with his hostage.
If you're gonna continue to drive like a maniac, can I stop playing hostage now?
If there's one thing I learned about doing this series, it's that, well, maybe I shouldn't have done this series, but the other thing I've learned is that you've always got to have some element of cahooting in an Arnold movie.
You said it's all bullshit. Harry, you're making a big mistake. You got me mixed up with somebody else.
Hey! Come on.
Lori.
Congratulations, Quaid. You led us right to him.
Sorry, Jack. I didn't want it to go down this way.
It's a good thing you're paying me a lot of money.
Selling weapons with your old CIA pals, huh? Is it just the money? Hey.
Don't look at me like that. You'd be amazed what you agree to when you're on fire.
Ray's deputies confront Gabriel's crew.
Stop!
Which leads to a great, terrifying sequence where they all have night vision goggles and the deputies are sitting ducks.
Can you make it to me?
And with Ray's help, the small-town deputies escape, but Jerry ends up getting shot and dying, cementing the personal stakes for Ray.
Jerry.
Eventually, Bannister realizes there's a small chance Cortez may make it through Somerton, so he calls up Ray to let him know.
It's unlikely that it'll be coming your way, but I'm going to send over a SWAT team from El Centro just in case.
Until they're not.
SWAT's not coming.
So we're on our own.
Knowing this is leading to a standoff of a final story sequence variety, Ray gathers his ragtag team, which now includes the town drunk who spent the first hour of the movie in a jail cell, and, unfortunately... And up until this point, we have 0 contenders for catchphrase. But I'm okay with that. I'm alright with that. Especially after the barrage of catchphrase overdose we got from the Expendables.
I'm back.
I'll be back.
I'll be back.
Let's get to the chopper!
Now Ray reveals a little more about his backstory.
Because I've seen enough blood and death. I know what's coming.
And that leads to a suiting up montage, which we haven't had in a while. What makes this one a little bit different is that it's a team effort. And this leads to our only callback to Arnold's previous films, when Louis Guzman holds up the actual Atlantean sword Conan found in Conan the Barbarian.
What do you think, we're fighting in a crusade?
There's a great little moment here where Ray tries to evacuate the diner.
It's too dangerous for you to stay here. I want everyone to go home.
You're talking to a 72-year-old man with high cholesterol eating a bacon and cheddar omelet with extra cheddar. Do I look like I'm afraid of death?
Which is funny, but then we go to the opposite of funny. With one of my biggest problems with Knoxville is his overabundance of weird hats. We get it, like he's a goofball character. He even pulls a Jackass-style stunt. He doesn't need distracting hats to remind us he's a goof. He's literally the walking embodiment of a hat on a hat. There's a moment where Arnold delivers what could be construed as a play on his most famous catchphrase.
You go to the south side and check if the buildings are cleared, okay? I'll be right back.
On my way.
But it's delivered in such throwaway fashion that it can't possibly be intended as such. Actually, he did something very similar in Raw Deal.
I'll be right back.
And I don't think that was intentional either, but he's gotta know, anytime he delivers a sentence with the words, I'll be and back in them, it's gonna register with the audience. The showdown commences on Main Street, and I'm realizing I have no idea what accent Peter Stormare is using here.
What the hell is that?
He must come from the same place as Connor McLeod from Highlander.
You talk funny, Nash. Where are you from?
Lots of different places.
Just a mishmash of every accent from across the world.
Look at that ass.
And you know, I made fun of it earlier, but thank God the entire town left at the beginning of the movie to watch that out-of-town high school football game because shit's about to go down. Guzman gets blown up, but then inexplicably survives, and instead of accepting that miracle and then protecting this gift of continued life at all costs, he takes it as a sign that he's invincible and just walks right down the middle of the street with the Tommy gun. Yeah, what did you think was gonna happen, buddy? And just when it seems like all hope is lost, here comes the town drunk in a school bus for the big hero moment. More significantly, that moment produces Arnold's most famous catchphrase of his career that I'm sure people still yell at him on the street to this day.
Welcome to Somerton.
Maybe it's not the most versatile, evergreen catchphrase. I don't know, but he tried. A better moment is when he goes through the diner door.
How are you, Sheriff?
Old.
And then Arnold gets one legit great action moment here when he tackles a sniper off the roof and shoots him in the head at the same time. They accomplish this by putting Arnold in a rig and having him actually tackle the guy, which is pretty cool. And also funny because when Arnold was governor, he used to visit movie sets and he would see them doing stunts. And around that time, they were doing a lot more work with rigs and wires. And they would say like, Arnold, don't you miss this? And he'd be like, oh, I don't miss that. I don't want to do the wires and never do the wires. And then, sure enough, here he is, hanging from wires. A less cool moment is the overwrought old lady does something surprising and violent cliche.
No trespassing.
Quiet, Granny.
Which we've seen before in an Arnold movie.
Ben Richards. That boy's one mean motherfucker. Put the hurt on him, Ray.
But luckily, Arnold's reaction kind of saves the day there.
Mrs. Salazar.
Sheriff.
Obliged.
And I guess Dinkum wasn't watching the movie earlier because now it's his turn to walk out in the middle of the street.
Louis, what are you doing?
Biggie's over here.
Oh, you got shot? You don't say. People, stop walking in the middle of the street during a shootout. And at this point, you would be forgiven for forgetting that there's another main villain out there because the majority of this last stand has taken place against Peter Stormare. Another big catchphrase set up here.
Who the hell are you?
I'm the sheriff.
Bye-bye Stormare, and hello Cortez in his super fast car. Luckily, Ray has a fast car of his own, the one set up at the beginning of the movie. And now it's set up for these two super fast cars to have this incredible high-speed chase. It's gonna rival the likes of Fast and Furious, and then... Nope. They're stuck in a cornfield. I kind of love the idea of this chase, but it doesn't work for me. Especially since they've spent the last hour and a half establishing that this car, the ZR1, is the fastest thing in the world. And then it just creeps along to the finale. Eventually, they both crash. Shit! And Cortez heads to the border on foot, but Ray beats him to the bridge, and we finally get our eponymous last stand. And a couple of good lines here from Arnold.
You fucked up my car.
You fucked up my day off. You make us immigrants look bad.
This last battle is, it's a bit creaky. Just a lot of squirming and rolling around on the ground. But it does involve some MMA and wrestling moves. And honestly, if I were Cortez, I would just run around Arnold and sprint to Mexico. That guy's not gonna catch you, he's like 65 years old. This scene on the bridge also has some weird uncanny valley stuff. It's like way too bright and artificial, and I couldn't figure out why at first, but it turns out, for some reason, they shot this all on a soundstage with a green screen. And I can only conclude that they consulted Tommy Wiseau on how to use unnecessary green screen.
It's not true. It's bullshit.
Now, the FBI shows up too late, as they always do, and Ray returns to town on his steed, pulling Cortez. The agent in cahoots also gets her comeuppance.
I'm so sorry, John. He was gonna kill me.
I'm glad he did, because that would have cost me the satisfaction of being able to arrest you.
And we find out every stupid idiot who walked in the middle of the street survived. Then we get a tag on our car gag.
In God's name happened to my car? The next time, don't park it in the fire zone. Schmuck.
And that's the last stand. The Last Stand received slightly above average reviews and a few rave reviews from the likes of Richard Roper. However, when it was released on January 18th, 2013, it landed at number 9 with an abysmal $6.4 million. By week 2, it dropped out of the top 10 to 16th, and week 3 it plummeted to 29th, wrapping up its domestic run with $12.1 million and an international take of 36.2, which means it only pulled together 49 million worldwide, just slightly above its $45 million price tag. A shocking failure. That opening weekend was his worst since the first Terminator in 1984, but Terminator ended up making $78 million on a shoestring budget, and the domestic total for Last Stand was, at the time, his second worst tally, ahead of only Red Sonja. It's pretty clear what happened. Time plus scandal equals disinterest. And don't forget, if not for the course correction of Terminator 3, his run of End of Days, The Sixth Day, and Collateral Damage already had him on a downward trajectory. It's difficult to understand expectations on The Last Stand. It should have been a triumphant return for Arnold, but his brand was damaged. It wasn't an event movie. It had kind of a bland title, and it didn't give audiences an exciting new version of Arnold that they just needed to check out. Plus, it was coming off the heels of the underperforming Expendables 2 and the oversaturation of nostalgia. And all of that was a recipe for a collective from the general public. But what about from an Arnold fan? I saw The Last Stand in theaters. I was one of the few, and I remember being entertained, but ultimately disappointed. It felt too small a movie for Arnold and overstuffed with comic relief. What should have been the emotional center of the movie, Jerry getting killed, feels silly because Jerry is presented as a bumbling idiot, literally tripping over scenery. It's not endearing, it's slapstick, and it makes it hard to care about what's happening. That's also true for the Knoxville and Guzman characters. They're cartoons. There's an idea in there that Ray has to shape up these stupid idiots to endure this onslaught of the drug cartel or they'll all die, but it's not actually portrayed in the movie. The modern Western idea is intriguing, but it's not innovative enough to stand out, especially against the expectations of the director of the good, the bad, and the weird. There are very few visual flourishes or much personality. It lacks spectacle. It's pedestrian, which you can't say about many Arnold movies past 1986, even in some of Arnold's artistic failures. Like The Sixth Day. It's trying something and even trying to say something. The Last Stand is surface level thrills. It gets in, gets violent, gets out, and it's over. And I suppose that's what he had to do here, especially after the scandals. I don't mind a back to basics approach for Arnold, but it's lacking a clever twist on the formula. He isn't taking any big risks, and he doesn't stretch his acting abilities in any way. It's not a total bore. It's entertaining when he's on screen, but it's just not that interesting. And at this point, he needed an undeniable triumph if he wanted to return to box office glory. All right, let's get to the stats. Acting chops 5. He's good when he's asked to look sullen and troubled by the things he's seen in the past, and he handles his quips just fine, but doesn't really stretch his acting abilities. Kill count, a fairly low 8, but he did kill 47 people in The Expendables 2 and 43 in 3 for a revised total of 699. Catchphrase, old. And here are the Every Arnold Movie Ever rankings. You got your cameos and T2 3D. Number 28, Hercules in New York. Number 27, The Villain. 26, Red Sonja. 25, Stay Hungry. 24, Batman and Robin. 23, Collateral Damage. 22, The Sixth Day. 21, Red Heat. 20, The Last Stand. 19, Raw Deal. 18, Junior. And the rest remain unchanged. Next up, Arnold makes history when he teams with Sylvester Stallone for the first time ever as above the title co-leads. Thanks, Expendables movies. You know, you really have to do some like verbal gymnastics to make it seem special now. But hey, this should be fun, right? It's a good old Prison Break movie, The Escape Plan.